everybody. My name is Lori Robinson, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Buffalo, Niagara. Tonight is our opportunity to listen to the New York State Senate District 61 candidates, to hear their views on the issues. Note that we are live streaming this event to a home audience, and it will also be available on our website at lwbbn.org. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to remind everyone to turn off all your personal electronic equipments. I would also like to remind you that we do have students and papers and pencils if you want to submit any questions. Well, somebody will come and pick them up, so just wave it. And this event is being organized by the League and UB Votes. Yay, UB Votes. And the League of Women Voters will be providing the timekeeping and the moderating and the question screening. So, the League is a nonpartisan, volunteer political organization dedicated to the informed and responsible participation of citizens in government. The League never supports or endorses any candidates or political parties. But we do want to hear from them and know what they're going to do for us. We've been doing this for over 100 years now, and our membership is open to everyone who is 16 years and older, whether male or female. Please consider joining the League. I realize that many people of the audience tonight may be partisan. However, I will insist that the candidates and the audience treats each other with respect. Personal attacks are not allowed. Please hold your applause until after the closing system. I will be asking questions received in writing and screened by Cindy Havey over here on my right. And our timekeeper for the evening's event is Ellen Belts. She's seated right in the front row and will hold up paddles for the candidates to see. The green one means 1 minute left, yellow means 30 seconds, and the red means time is up. Please finish the sentence that you are saying when you get to that card. And we should conclude this by 8 p.m. So the format for this evening is as follows. Our opening statements from each candidate will be for 2 minutes. Oh, I didn't get a 1 and a 2. Who's first? I didn't get that. Okay. That would be good information to have. So our candidates did pick numbers for prior to this. So let me just write that down. Okay, so we can start. Are we ready for the timer? We'll start with our opening statements, and Mr. Gagliardo, please go ahead.
Testing? Okay. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, UB, for putting on this forum, and Mr. Zellner for being here tonight. From North Buffalo to Kenmore and Williamsville, from Grand Island to Tonawanda and Amherst, this district is our home. It's where we raise our families, grow our businesses, and look out for one another. I've walked these streets and listened to our communities. I understand the challenges that you face because my family faces them too. Rising healthcare and grocery costs, housing that feels out of reach, high taxes, high auto insurance, and for many seniors, the daily worry of making ends meet. Like you, I believe every student deserves a quality education and a future filled with opportunity. Like you, I want safe neighborhoods and thriving small businesses, and like you, I want my children and grandchildren to build their lives right here in Western New York. These challenges aren't Republican or Democrat issues, they're our issues, and the political division we see today isn't sustainable. On day one in Albany, I will work with anyone, Republican, Democrat, Independent, blanks, who are serious about results. That means lowering healthcare costs by expanding access, keeping doctors in our region, and supporting struggling hospitals. It means ensuring schools that need support receive it so our kids are prepared. I will also fight to bring clean energy to our region the right way, responsibly, practically, and without breaking the bank for taxpayers. We can invest in energy solutions that protect our environment and make Western New York more attractive to large employers, creating jobs and strengthening our economy. Clean energy should make sense for our environment, our economy, and our taxpayer. It doesn't do all three. It's not the right plan. I'll push for real solutions on infrastructure, for potholes and Broadway gaps, to flood protection along our lakefront, and cutting red tape and using taxpayer dollars wisely. Public safety must always come first. I'll support law enforcement with resources, training, and mental health support they need while holding repeat offenders accountable. Safety is not partisan, it's personal. Thank you.
Precious second. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the League, who does such critical work these days, especially. I want to thank all the students for being here and everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Jeremy Zellner. I'm a candidate for State Senate. I've been talking to folks throughout this district, particularly in the last month or so, and having really good conversations with them about life. And particularly in the last couple of weeks, talking to a lot of immigrants that live here who are simply terrified and concerned about the plight of what's going on in our country right now. And so much to the point where people are telling me I'm carrying my passports around. And people that are talking to me on the phone say, I don't feel comfortable talking on the phone. That's not America. We are under attack right now by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans from the federal government. And they're doing everything they can to get retribution on a blue state and cause us harm, and cut our health care, and cut our SNAP benefits, and close hospitals, and close clinics. We've been fighting for the last couple of months to stop these closures. And we need somebody to go to Albany that's going to put a stop to that and push back against it and send a message that we're not going to take it in the state of New York. We're going to fight back. We're going to stand up for our people. We're going to fund the safety nets that are in place, that we're going to keep in place. And we're going to do what's right for this community. And I've born and raised in this district. I'm proud to raise my family here. And I'm proud of the work I've done as chair of this party, the Democratic Party, and as Board of Elections Commissioner, working really hard to facilitate our democracy over the years and make sure that we have the best Board of Elections in the state of New York and elect wonderful candidates who represent our community very well, from Congressman Kennedy to Sean Ryan to April Baskin to our new supervisor, Sean Lavin. We've really elected wonderful people, and I'd be honored to have your support. Look forward to tonight.
Thank you. Thank you both. So, for our questions, questions will be directed to the candidates in rotation, and the candidates in the given cards will be used for rebuttal. Each card will permit the candidate a 1-minute rebuttal for an opponent's question response.
Could you use the microphone, please?
Sorry about that. Okay. The questions will be directed to the candidates in rotation. The candidates have been given 2 red cards to be used for rebuttal. Each card will permit candidates a 1-minute rebuttal to an opponent's question response. And they'll have 2 minutes to answer each question. Okay, were there any questions coming up from the audience? Okay. All right, question number 1. Oh, the same order there. Dan, you'll go first. What past experiences do you bring with you that are of value to this position?
Well, my entire existence has been, I'm a working man who has been servicing working families. I have worked in government in the city of Niagara Falls. I also worked at the SBA in the Federal Disaster Program. I've worked with corporate America, and I've also had the opportunity to sit on the board for Independent Health, and I own DeVolio's in Amherst and Williamsville. Every single day, people come into my facility And what I do is I make sure that we don't ask people whether they're a Democrat or Republican, we just service them. And that's how I intend to do that. My past experience with budgets, making payrolls, signing the front of a check as opposed to the back of a check, makes me a candidate who has been out there in the community. During my supervisor run, I had the opportunity to go to 12,000 homes and speak to thousands and thousands of residents. And what I came out of that was that we are more alike than we may think. That we're not a party of division, we're not parties of division, and we should be working together to make sure that we get things done at the state and on the federal government as well. My experience has been that I have serviced and worked for people without ever thinking who and what their affiliation was, because that's not the way we should be doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you read the question again?
Yes. What past experiences do you bring with you that are of value to this position?
Okay, thanks. So for the last 14 years, I've been the chair of the Democratic Party here in Erie County, and since 2017, been the commissioner of the Board of Elections, which means I've worked with virtually every elected official in this district one way or another, built relationships from here to Albany that I think are going to be invaluable to this seat and to the residents of the 61st District. But before that, I was worked at a place called Science Kit and Boreal Laboratories in a warehouse and an office for a while, and I delivered pizzas for almost a decade. So I have life experience where I worked full-time while going to school full-time and putting myself through night school, and landed in a position at the Erie County Democratic Party when I decided to volunteer and make my voice heard and wanted to express my political knowledge with them. And so I was never involved in politics before, no one in my family ran. Walked in the door one day and had an open headquarters and started working hard and elected some terrific people over the years and have done some great things. So what this district I think needs is somebody that can get things done, that can pick up the phone and talk to any of the elected officials to find out what the challenges are that we're facing every day. What this district needs is somebody who understands the struggles of what's happening day to day with the high costs of everything that have skyrocketed since Donald Trump has taken office. And I think what this district needs is somebody who has institutional knowledge of how government works. So that's what I bring.
Okay, thank you. So you might, Mr. Zellner, got a question? I'll remember by the end of the evening. Okay, you have the second question. The 61st District has just gone through a transition after the departure of Sean Ryan. What do you see as the district's most urgent unmet need right now, and how would your first year in office address it?
Well, I think what I'm hearing when I'm talking to folks is affordability right away. We have to do something about affordability with utilities. We have to do something to help working families. And I'm really excited for what the governor has rolled out with childcare and with no tax on tips. And I think we can do something with utilities as well that she's talking about. We're seeing record profits with utility executives that are making insane amounts of money while everyday people are struggling to pay their utility bills. So I think getting some costs under wrap is the number one priority. Obviously there's a lot of infrastructure projects that need to be done. And as I've started with, people don't feel safe. They're concerned about what is happening at the federal government. We see some threats about ICE coming to this community in a big way now. We need to get a handle on that. We need to push back and stop what is happening. There's a couple bills in the state assembly right now that I would support to have the state police and local police not cooperate with ICE, because we were all lied to many times by Donald Trump, but one particular is that he was going to secure our borders and take care of the worst, and that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing mayhem in the streets and bedlam in Minnesota, going after people who are trying to worship, who are trying to go to school, and we need to do something about that and push back in a big way.
Can you state that question one more time?
The 61st District has just gone through a transition after the departure of Sean Ryan. What do you see as the district's most urgent unmet need right now, and how would your first year in office address it?
I think that Mr. Zellner makes a lot of good points. I am for the child care credit that the governor has proposed, but I think that upstate should get it before downstate. I also believe that the no tax on tips should have been in the 26 budget, and it will be in the 27 budget, and I intend to make sure that that happens. But I was able to send out another press release, and we have a $25,000 deduction in this year's budget, which I will fight for. I also think that our utility costs are outrageous. As a small business owner, my bills used to be $1,400 a month for one of my restaurants. Now it's $2,200. So we have to curb it. And I think that we have to audit the facilities that are charging us this money and make sure that we take care of it. I also think that what's important, I just noticed that $22 million grant was that was not given to the village of Williamsville. We have to find out for their sewer project. And I also think that I would like to find out what would happen with the 150 jobs that were just laid off at ECMC, being able to talk to those hospitals and see what we can do about taking care of that. My intention for this first year is to make sure that I push this legislation through, do everything I possibly can, and try to do something for our firemen by giving them $5,000 for volunteer firemen's apparatus equipment and getting some type of tax abatements for these people so we can get more people to volunteer. Thank you.
Okay, Dan, keep the microphone, because question number 3 is back to you. Kind of in the same line, but what do you feel are the most pressing issues facing the state legislature at this time, and how will you address them? Yes.
Okay. As I said, I think the state legislature needs to get a waste, fraud, and abuse program in place to make sure that we're going after and looking for these things. I also believe that we need to open our lines of communication, not working with local officials and talking to people and making sure that we can get out there and make sure that we're trying to build consensus instead of having a divisive attitude. The state needs to watch their money. They have to spend less, because what's happening is the federal government is making it more difficult, so we have to take responsibility at the state. I'm looking forward to working with Kathy Hochul. I'm looking forward to working with Mayor Ryan, Sean Lavin, and all the leaders to do that, because ultimately it doesn't make a difference. As I've said earlier, it does not make a difference about party affiliation. And what's important is that we need to make sure we're working together to bring a solution to the problems, and I believe that open communication is the most important thing.
So the most pressing, well, as I continue to bring up, I hear safety and I hear affordability. So I know that when hopefully I can get to Albany, I'm going to be handling this ICE issue. There's a few bills there right now that are really critical, but I also think that the affordability is something that the governor has laser focused on. As I said, we don't have the child tax credits in upstate yet because we aren't ready in Erie County to unfold it right now. But there are a few pilot programs happening in upstate right now. It's not just New York City. But you cannot recklessly just fund things without a plan in place, without funding streams coming in place. You can say that you've got all these ideas, but you can't just put things in place unless you have somewhere where the money's coming. And I applaud the governor for making sure that that she has this set in the city. But I will be pushing very hard to make sure that we can expand it in upstate. And it's also critical to keep in mind that we want to not just expand it so that we have like daycares being able to get subsidized. We want to have it in schools. We want to have professionals. We want to have teachers getting those 3 and 4 year olds in and getting them into a classroom style setting so that they can start learning right away. I mean, education is critical, and having young kids in classrooms with teachers is going to be even more important, not just a daycare. As I mentioned, my wife and I, when our kids were that age, we were paying half of our salary to send them to daycare full time each day. So this is gonna change a lot of people's lives for the good, I think.
Question number 4. Jeremy, you get to answer first. So we've kind of combined these together, speaking of the governor and her budget. Which proposals in the governor's 2027 executive budget do you strongly support and why? And which ones do you strongly oppose and why?
Well, I don't know if I strongly oppose anything that I've read yet, but what I am concerned about is insurance costs across the state as well. I think that is something that, again, you're seeing skyrocketing insurance costs across our state while executives are making record profits, where shareholders are making record profits for insurance. You know, one thing I disagree with the governor a little bit on is I'm a little concerned about whether pointing the finger at litigators and lawsuits. I'm not so sure that we can blame victims who have been injured and attorneys who are helping them recoup their fair share of what they deserve after being injured in a car wreck. But I'll tell you, I am really, when you talk about affordability, it hits on all levels. Insurance, car insurance, health insurance, and again, it's coming from the federal government attacking our state, cutting our Medicaid, and cutting all of our health care costs, where we're now gonna have clinics closing. I was with CWA before the election in November at DeGraff Hospital, where they were announcing clinics being closed there. We've got rural hospitals being closed. We have to go to Albany and push back against that.
I think that Jeremy makes some very good points. When it comes to healthcare, we have to make sure that the state, I sit on the Board of Independent Health, and I understand what the patients need, what the doctors need, what the state needs, and what the hospitals need. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that everybody has skin in the game. So in her budget, what I agree with is the fact that childcare, but as I said earlier, I think that it needs to be an upstate, not reckless. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when I put out a press release about no tax on tips, and other people did that, she then acknowledged it. So I think that the governor needs to understand and make sure that these are priority for what we do. Also, I don't know if this direct attack on agents and things of that nature are good for building a consensus. Everybody should be responsible for their actions. Nobody should be doing things. What happened in Minnesota was tragic, and the people need to pay for what they've done. The issue we need to do is we need to be communicating. So in the governor's budget, what I found to be most important was the no tax on tips, the child care, and also the fact that what we want to do is we want to help our hospitals, but I do believe that we need to audit them, and we need to have some mechanisms in place to make sure that we are making sure that no waste, fraud, and abuse occurs throughout all of the state programs that we have, and working with the hospitals.
Thank you. Okay, question number 5, another one from our audience. How will you make sure our community gets its fair share of resources in the upcoming state budget?
Okay, so when I was running for supervisor, the issue that we have today is there's no communication that's going out there. If anybody wants to be an elected official, what they need to do is they need to get out there and they need to talk to the community. That's the most important thing. We shouldn't have the community coming to us, we should be going to them. But the problem is that we don't have any communication avenues that are just one where people can get the information. What I want to do is I want to make sure that in the 61st district, you know exactly what I'm doing all the time. The bills that I'm fighting for, the people that I'm working for, and I want to bring an awareness to the 61st district. What I want people to do is become engaged. Because with peaceful protests and things like that, what we can do is we can let our voices be heard. That is what we need to do, and we need to make sure that people understand that they matter. But we have to have a central location. I want to do podcasts, I want to do YouTube. It's going to be called 61. And you're going to be able to go onto it every single day, and you're going to be able to find out exactly what's happening. So we need to bring this for the forefront, and we need to make sure that people understand what's going on. I didn't know what my senator was doing. I didn't have no clue. I don't know what they're voting on, but I want to educate the population, and we need to get more people out to vote, and we need to have more people doing more stuff and becoming involved with what's going on in their neighborhood. That is the most important thing that we can do. We do have a voice, it does matter, and it will work.
Read that again.
How will you make sure our community gets its fair share of resources in the upcoming state budget?
Okay. So the state budget is a critical piece to Western New York. We're not an affluent community. We need every ounce of support that we can get from the state of New York. And it's not going to happen if you elect a Republican. The Democrat majority in the state Senate is where every nickel from the state of New York comes through, Western New York comes through the Democratic majority in the state Senate. They are in charge, they are in the power in the state of New York. And so electing a Republican is a great way to not get as many resources you need. I think you're seeing that in some other places around here that have elected a Republican in the minority caucus. So my plan is to hit the ground running immediately. I've already begun talking to several of the elected officials in the district about key projects that they're interested in supporting. We've got a crisis in the city of Buffalo with finance. I've talked with Mayor Ryan about making sure that we can get as much resources to the city of Buffalo as necessary. And it is really, really important that we get out and vote on Tuesday and support a Democrat here.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Dan, you put out one of your red cards. You have Ellen 1 minute for a rebuttal.
Okay, what that sounds like is that you have to be a Democrat in order for you to get something done. Unfortunately, that would make the governor complicit that that's the only way we can get it done. In my opinion, we have to have a loud enough voice. We need to tell people with that, and we need to be willing to work with everybody on both sides of the aisle to make sure that they understand that the most important thing that we could do is not have an obstinate position that I am either this way or that way. I will not believe that you have to be a Democrat in order to get funding in this state. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's who are speaking for the constituents and how loud we can be. And guess what? I will tell you that with the plan I just outlined, people will know that we're here. And I'll make sure that we get the money that we need.
Okay, thank you. Question number 6. Jeremy, you start again, please. How will you make sure working families aren't left behind while the corporations keep getting tax breaks?
That's a great question. Once again, we go back to the top. The president has done everything he can to enrich himself, his friends, his cronies, his billionaire buddies, cut their taxes and put it on the backs of all of us. So I think we got to push back, and we've got to, one other thing that the governor and I might not have, we might be on a little bit of a different wavelength is, I think we've got to look at people who are billionaires in this state and maybe increase their taxes a little bit. Because, just talking points of saying, we don't need taxes and we've got all these plans and we've got all these gimmicks is not working. And saying there's this massive fraud all over the country and we've got to audit fraud and audit the hospitals, that's what's got us into this mess. They haven't found any damn fraud. This has been a big joke with Donald Trump from day one. There's been no fraud that they find. And it's what's caused this chaos and this mess. And so, excuse me, this guy keeps swearing over here. I thought we were going to be civil over here. So anyway, I think that is a concern. That's why we have to return tax cuts to the middle class. We've got to help them with childcare. We've got to help them lower the costs of utilities. We've got to make sure those folks that are working for tips, let's go higher than $25,000. Who do you know that's working full-time in a tip industry that's only making $25,000? Another Trump lie. We're going to not tax tips. Well, guess what? Now all of a sudden it's $25,000 only. So let's make it higher. People are working full-time as in the wait service community, and they're making a lot more money and they should be having more money returned to them.
Would you repeat that question for me, please?
Sure, how will you make sure working families aren't left behind while corporations get tax breaks?
Well, now you're talking about what I do each and every day. I'm a working man who takes care of working families, so I understand exactly what they're looking for. The cost of living is out of control. But blaming it on the president is just the most... what you're trying to do is you're trying to categorize that everything that's wrong in our country has to do with the president, and that this state has done nothing wrong. Since 2020, 700,000 people have left this state because of the affordability. They cannot afford to live here. So what we have to do is we can't look at this as a one-state solution. It's two. There's more people that have more opportunity to give us ideas. What we have to do is not think that abstinence is a position. It's just abstinence. What we need to do is we need to find a common solution and see how it works. You saw how it was de-escalated a bit when President Trump was talking to Governor Walz. People want a change and they want something different. But I'm not going to sit up here and say that Donald Trump has done everything wrong and we're going to blame everything on him. The thing that's most important that we can do is we need to stop with the lines, stop and get over them, and stop doing the rhetoric that we have that's happening right now. It's always easy. It's always easy to scare people and make them feel like this is going to happen and all that's going on. In my opinion, we cannot sustain this anymore. And the problem I have with today is that I will not be party or complicit to making things all about one person doing one thing. There was a Republican Party before Donald Trump, and there'll be a Republican Party after Donald Trump. So blaming it all on the Republicans is just an easy way out.
Mr. Zellner, you have 1 minute for your rebuttal.
Well, I don't know who I'm sitting next to here because he's just praising Governor Hochul while bombing her in the mail with these caricature things, attacking her, saying how terrible she is. And he's saying we need to bring civility back, and he's been blowing me up for 5 days on TV and in mailboxes all across Erie County saying we need to bring civility back while he's trashing me with lies all over the place. So I think that this whatever you're trying to do up here is this middle of the road, I'm kind of I'm not interested in politics. I'd like to know what concerns you do have with Donald Trump, because if you're going to just apologize for him up here like you're doing, that's fine with me. But my rebuttal is that you can't sit up here and say we need civility, we need to bring the civility back, and the governor's terrific when you're blowing us up in mailboxes and on TV stations.
Let's try to keep our personalities out of it and let's stick to the issues. So, question number 7. Very similar, but instead of working families, how are you going to make State District 61 more business friendly?
Well, I think one of the things we need to also help with affordability is housing. And I think we build more housing, that's going to make housing costs come down. But what is important with home builders and folks that I'm talking to is that they have to jump through hoops to get any kind of permit done and to get any kind of building done. They've got to go, it's almost impossible to deal with the state. I want to have a strong staff in this legislative staff that's going to be responsive to the community, responsive to this district. There's so many small business owners in this district that need help every day, and we are going to have a team that's going to answer their questions and deal with their problems every single day. When we talk about the utilities, we've got to talk about the electrification. We've got to talk about climate change. We've got to talk about fossil fuels, and we've got to deal with that situation. We can't just say, well, this electrification can't happen. We've got to have real solutions. It's concerning that we just hear rhetoric saying we can't do this rather than have solutions, because climate change is happening and fossil fuels are literally killing this planet.
Let's talk about businesses, and I want to make sure that we understand that Businesses are the lifeblood, and I am absolutely a business person to understand what we need to do. Regulations are unbelievable, and the cost that we talk about, the cost of utilities and all that makes a difference. We need to get out there, we need to try to get more people in there, we need to subsidize and help our businesses. But I have to go back to this question about where I stand. My flyers are true, and they're factual. So you could say whatever you want. I know that they're true. And I stand by them, because I will tell you that in my party, what I do and what I say to them is I tell them exactly that I'm my own man and I will do my own thing, and they've allowed me to do that. I don't follow party rule. I don't stay with one side. And businesses in this community need to understand from a working man who understands what it's like to service people and not care about what their party affiliation is, and be able to go out there and make sure that they understand that we're all the same. This middle of the road that you call that I am, you're right, I am the middle of the road. I'm a consensus builder, and I will continue to do that in Albany. I do not believe in divisive behavior. I think it's a mistake, and I think that's the reason why we are where we are today. This is why everything has been escalated. And with regard to Donald Trump, listen, if I wanted to say the way you feel, if you think I'm MAGA, then you're a socialist. And that's a ridiculous statement to make. And quite honestly, I will not go down that path. Thank you.
Thank you. We got a little off track with our order here a minute. So for question number 8, let's go back to where we should be. So Jeremy, you're gonna get first question number 8. What is your approach to funding public education, including K through 12 schools and public higher education institutes like SUNY?
Well, I think we need to fully fund it and go past K. I think we got to do pre-K 3 and 4 and do everything we can to get it expanded through upstate. We also need to be paying our teachers more and give them a raise. We also need to be getting resource officers in the schools to help them, because violence in schools is something that teachers talk to me about as well. They're concerned about it, and they don't have the resources they need. So we need to fully fund schools, which I think the governor is in this budget, and we need to do the 3 and 4 pre-K, but we do need to try to get that into the schools as well. We also have a problem with Tier 6 happening, where we're having a really hard time trying to recruit people to be teachers, because the tiers shifted and there's no retirement anymore. Somebody's working for 50 years as a teacher and they can't afford to retire. So if we don't fix that, we're gonna have a real problem. I don't know how many teachers I know in my life that are burned out, and teachers that went through college that now are saying, geez, I don't know if I can afford to be a teacher. So I think it's really important that we look at the Tier 6 reform as well.
I agree with Jeremy. I think that we need to fund our education. We need to fund more youth programs, recreation programs, after-school activities. We need to make sure that we're keeping our children busy and they've got things to do. I am more than willing to work with all people on that, because they're our children. And I think that we need to stay focused on that, and we need to make sure that we have money in the budget to do that.
All right, we're at question number 9. And again, talking about our students. So how should the state support students while also addressing rising tuition and student debt?
Well, I think that when I was going to school, I took out student loans. I think that the programs are very good. I don't think that giving student loans and paying them off is the answer to the solution, but I do think that maybe helping them do that is a good idea. I also think that we need to look at these organizations in their entirety and see where they need help and how we can help our students grow and get the necessary resources that they need. I think that the state can become an arm of helping our students to get to the place that they need to get to. And I also feel that the most important thing that we could do with education is always have money available to make sure that it's always being done every single year, so the schools know that they can have this funding. We need to come to a place where when we look at our programs, they know that this money is there, and then they have to prove that they need that money and they've done what they said that they're gonna do with that money.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to read that again.
How should the state support students while also addressing rising tuition and student debt?
Well, I think since we talked about younger students, we'll talk college students. You know, when I was going to Buff State and Niagara Community College, I had TAP and Pell grants. We need to make sure that is there for the next generation. Now we have the fully funded SUNY and CUNY community colleges that I think is really going to be important. But we also have to have jobs for them when they graduate, and we've got to have training for them when they graduate. So I think you're seeing a building coming out here that's going to be a STEAM building for engineering. That's important that we get them trained on the trades of tomorrow as well. But my prior statement kind of speaks about education, that it needs to be fully funded, and safety in the classrooms is critical, and Tier 6 needs to really be reformed.
Jeremy, you got question number 10, which is again similar. We're in the college, so thank you, students, for your questions. What would you do in the New York State Senate to serve UB students specifically?
Well, there's an awful lot of state funding that comes to this school. I would make sure that it continues. But I'd also like to see more outreach. One of the reasons that I got involved in politics was so that I could help get more people involved. And I think we need to be able to have more groups on this campus that want to get formed, and they can be funded with more state funding. I think we need to be able to help them with seasonal jobs here on the campus. You know, and have opportunities for them to be placed in the real world out in the community as well. I think it's important that they have internships. We've had a number of interns in my career come through UB. You know, so we want to keep an open door to the students here.
I agree. I think that we need to make sure the state funding is there, but I also think that we need to make sure that they know that they're getting this money and not have to worry about it each and every year. And as long as we have things in place to make sure that they're using the money for what they're getting it for. But I also want to say this: what I think we have to do is we have to get the students energized and involved with things that are happening in government. When I was running for supervisor, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get the UB students, I wanted them to come into government and help us start looking at things and start working with the people that are in the government and getting them involved. But that could be across the board. We need to have more internship programs for these students to go out there and understand what they want to do. We have to engage the students of this to get out into the community and go into all aspects of business and get them involved and use them and have more people helping us out in society.
Just had to adjust our questions because you were answering the next one with that last one. So, we'll move along here. We're at question 11. And Dan, you're going to start with that one. So, what specific actions will you take to protect voting rights, increase voter participation, and ensure elections are fair, even if those reforms reduce your own party's advantage?
There's nothing more important than voting. Nothing. I absolutely agree that it's the fundamental basis by which we live by. We've got to get more people involved in voting. It makes no sense to me that 30% of the people voted in the last election, and they only anticipate 12% in this election. That's not right. We've got to involve people. We've got to get people involved in voting more. And if we can do it, and we have checks and balances on that, I am a firm believer that we need to incorporate the new technologies that are out there. Now, I also think that what we have to do is, you mentioned in this question, it shouldn't matter about politics or your party. This is about getting a vote from as many people, from citizens of this country, to go out and do as much as they possibly can by voting. And the way to do that is to make sure that we are educating the population all the time. They need to know exactly what's happening, how important these decisions are, and how important it is for you to be engaged in that. And this is a good place where the students can help us. They can get out there, they can do this, regardless of your party, they can just get people to vote. I hope that 100% of the people come out and vote for this election. They should be looking at us, and they should be looking at each of us, researching the candidates, and they should get out there and vote. And I'm a huge proponent of it, and I am more than willing to support anything that gets people out there to vote.
Well, I'm open for 100% turnout too. But I've worked since 2017 on this very issue, and we've really done a really great job in a bipartisan fashion. As the commissioner of the board, we can do nothing alone. It has to be done both Democrat and Republican. And so one of the things I'm most proud of is our early voting structure that Commissioner Moore and I put in place, which had the most sites than anywhere else in the state of New York when it first happened. And that was done on a bipartisan way, and it opened up the franchise to thousands and thousands of people who were limited to just voting on one day. So I'm excited about that moving forward with early voting in our county, because we've set the standard for the state of New York. We also went to schools and taught civics in schools, and I think we need to get them a little younger. We were going to high school classes because the new law is that we can pre-register 16 and 17-year-olds. So we would go and we would bring our machines and we would show them how to vote. I think we need to do a lot more with that. The state has passed some laws recently in the last few years to kind of make that put into our curriculum, is to teach civics in classes. I think, as I said, we need younger kids in 4th and 5th grade. That's when my interest was sparked in this, when I saw John LaFalce's calendar at my grandparents' house with all the Washington, D.C. monuments. That's when I realized that I wanted to do this someday, get involved. So I think we really need to spark a lot of people's minds so that they know that they can get involved and make a difference. There are far too few people involved. Democracy is not a spectator sport.
Okay, next question. Jeremy, back to with you. What should New York do if national leaders try to roll back protections for LGBTQ plus people or immigrants?
Well, what we've already done is we've passed a state amendment to our Constitution in 2024. We worked really hard to make sure that happened. Unfortunately, the Republicans ran and tried to make it so that it was just a horrible act and this terrible thing that's going to send people into different bathrooms and just use scare tactics with it. But we got it passed, and we worked really hard to make that happen, so it's codified in our state constitution to protect those classes of folks that need that protection. So I'm confident that we're in good shape here in New York. But I've got a lifetime of supporting the LGBTQ community, bringing them into the Democratic Party, growing our ranks with them, electing the first gay woman to the Supreme Court in history here in Western New York. And so I'm going to continue fighting like I always have.
First of all, I appreciate everything you've done with early voting. That's great. I think that's really admirable. Anything that would take away anybody's rights, we should fight tooth and nail for. So I support all legislation to make sure that it's codified and make sure we're protecting all people, no matter what.
Thank you. All right, here's one from the lead. So this first goes to Dan. Ranked choice voting has been adopted in New York City and in other major cities and in several states to give voters more choice and reduce negative campaigning. Would you support ranked choice voting for all of New York State? Why or why not?
Ranked choice voting, I don't agree with it. I think that our primary process, I think what we do now is a good way. We allow people to go out there and have to work for it, and I don't believe that prioritizing and moving people up in a ranking system works. Sorry? Could you explain it to me? No, well, why don't you explain it to me? I still have time, explain it to me.
Just that your count votes a little more, so if you only got 40% of the people would get to pick more people. We'd get to pick our first choice, who we would prefer to have, but if we can't have our first choice, well, this second choice wouldn't be so bad. But if that fourth candidate gets in, I'd be very mad. So it gives us an option, and then it also allows more people to have a voice. My second choice would be great. My third choice would be great. So therefore, I have more voice, more option.
As I stated, I don't agree with that.
So I don't not agree with ranked choice voting. I'm just not so sure it's necessary upstate. We simply don't have enough people running for office here, like to be ranked choice. You know, we didn't see 6 people running for Amherst supervisor last year. We don't see 5 people running for county executive. You know, I don't think that it would encourage more people to vote. I'm not necessarily against it. I think you saw a hotly contested mayor's race in the city of New York that was, you know, ranked choiced in the primary and the general. Well, in the primary for sure. But, you know, I'm not necessarily against it. I think it's a little confusing, and I'm not sure it's necessary in the whole state. Because again, we're not seeing hotly contested races where you see 5, 6 people running for an office here.
All right, we'll move along. Okay, what's that? All right, Jeremy, this one's for you. This morning's Buffalo News has an article stating that New York and other state legislators plan to introduce measures, I'm quoting, to introduce measures that would allow citizens to sue federal immigration agents for alleged civil rights violations. How will you respond to this as a state legislature?
I would support it. Nobody's above the law. And I think, you know, that's an important piece of this is I have friends and family in law enforcement, but law enforcement is not standing with what is going on right now with ICE. You saw the Niagara County Sheriff, who's a Republican, say that he's not going to cooperate with ICE. He doesn't want them in his jails, and he is stopping this. So it's time to take a stand and stand up strong and tall. The Republican governor candidate for the state of Minnesota withdrew his candidacy because he does not believe in what's going on with the Republican Party. Some people are making a stand here.
Would you repeat that, please?
This morning's Buffalo News had an article stating that New York and other states' legislatures plan to, quote, introduce measures that would allow citizens to sue federal immigration agents for alleged civil rights violation. How would you respond as a state senator?
I don't think that there's anything more important than coming to a solution or finding out what happened in Minnesota with those 2 incidents. It was tragic. And if these people are guilty, then they should be punished, and we should allow any type of civil type of litigation to occur. I agree with Jeremy here. Nobody is above the law. Nobody. And again, this is not a partisan thing. This is just common sense thing. If somebody does something wrong, they should be responsible for their actions.
Okay, Dan, this is yours again first. What policy would you promote that would be most beneficial to your constituents?
Well, first of all, time. And policy-wise, I will make sure that I am going after the utility companies to make sure that we're not bearing the cost. I will make sure that we are out there helping people get to an affordability which is comfortable for them. And this means all all areas of affordability, not only just taxes. We have to look at all this stuff. So my policies will be to make sure that we have a good cost of living where people are not afraid of losing their house and not being able to make their bills. You know, as a small business person, when my staff thought that they were getting the tax on tips, no tax on tips, I had to explain to them that wasn't happening. But I will tell you that these are the things that matter most. We need to make sure that we hone in on the cost of car insurance, our taxes, our utilities, everything that we do, our housing, everything that we do. We cannot sustain higher prices when we're not making enough money to do this. So my policy will be to make sure that I hold that as I will champion that cause to make sure that we reduce the cost of living.
This is, I guess, a pretty general question because there's a number of policies we discussed today. One thing, though, since it's very general, I'll bring up is labor. I've been endorsed by 6 labor unions in this race because they know that I'm a fighter for labor. They know that my grandfather and father were both GM UAW members, and they are under attack as well right now with their ability to organize. And it has never been more important to stand tall with organized labor, with record profits. We've got inflation going through the roof and CEOs and companies making record profits right now. They need to share that with union workers and their workers. That is something that I'm going to make number 1 in my office.
Jeremy, question number 16 is back to you. What do you see as the biggest issue delaying progress in the New York State government?
Well, I'm hoping that we're not going to have too much of a delay. It looks like the budget is a pretty solid budget from what I've seen. I think we need to make sure that there's some serious tweaks with some of the things that I've seen, but I hope we don't have a delayed budget process like we've had in the past. But, you know, I know this governor, she's a fighter. She's going to do what is best for this state. And so I think when she held up the budget last year, she did what she thought was right. And so I hope that we can come together and fully fund the things that are critical right now. But we are in a tough spot. The federal funding's been gutted from our state, and it's going to cost our state taxpayers money. And we've got to do all we can to make sure the burden doesn't fall on them.
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
What do you see as the biggest issue delaying progress in the New York State government?
Well, I think that we need to make sure that all sides are being spoken for in this budget. And we have to make sure that we get what we need. We need to make sure we have the money for the things that we are promoting, that the governor is promoting. We have to have a clear path, and we need to make sure that whatever is being done at this particular point, we have an audit to make sure that there's no waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm all for it. If the federal government is going to take money away from us, then what we need to do is we need to look at our own purse strings. We need to understand what's going on, and we need to make sure that everything that we do, we have it efficient. And I believe that we can get more money to pay for these programs that we so desperately need. And I think that we should be looking at our dollars and cents for every program that we do in a fiscally responsible way.
Thank you. Okay, Dan, this is back to you for number 17. We were talking about the loss of population in New York State. Data shows that Senate District 61's population has been stable. What do you think about the importance of immigrant communities to the population stabilizing?
I think that immigration is a huge issue. My grandparents came over here, they were immigrants. They came over here legally, and I think it's wonderful. I don't think that anybody should be mistreated with disrespect in any way whatsoever. So I am all for immigrants being in our community, working with us, and coming in a legal process. I also think that we should be doing something for the people that have been here, who are good citizens, who've done everything they possibly can. I do agree, and Democrats and Republicans agree, that the criminal element needs to be removed, and we need to be doing that in a way that is not abrasive, abusive in any way whatsoever. But I think that immigration to the state is the cornerstone of who we are and what we are. And I think that we need to be more respectful of the people that have been here, and I think that the people in the federal government need to get off their dupas and do something about getting the people who are making a difference in this country and give them a path to citizenship.
I've been traveling around the community talking to groups, Bengali, Burmese, all kinds of different immigrant groups and different cultural groups, and they are the backbone of this community. That is what built Western New York, our immigrants, and we need to continue being a welcoming community. Folks that are here on asylum are not here illegally, but this government has treated them as such. And as I said, this is a serious issue that the state could play a role in, that each municipality could play a role in, to say, we're not participating in this. We respect our citizens and residents. These folks are paying into our Social Security and our tax system, and they're never going to recoup any of it, a lot of them. We need to treat them with respect. This is America. We don't round people up here, and we need to push back.
Thank you. So in that same thing, Jeremy, Erie County houses many immigrant families. Do you support the sanctuary city policy?
Well, we're not a sanctuary city in Erie County, but we have a lot of folks that were seeking asylum, and again, many folks in the Republican Party have demonized these people and said, look at these people in the hotels, and we've got people trying to make political issues of those folks that we've had to house here. It's a reality. In New York State, we take care of people, and it costs a lot of money, but we have to do what we can to make sure that it's not crushing our families while being civil and while helping people when they're here trying to seek asylum or when they need some help. We've all needed help. You can't just talk the talk, you have to walk the walk.
Repeat that one more time, please.
Erie County houses many immigrant families. Do you support the sanctuary city policy?
I agree with what we have right now. I don't think we need to be a sanctuary city in order for us to help our immigrants. I look around and I've spoken to many of the same people that Jeremy has spoken to. And I will tell you that they're just like my grandparents when they came over. My grandfather, a petition was signed for my grandfather to get him out of the neighborhood because he was Italian. Well, my grandfather worked harder, showed those people in that community that he was a good, law-abiding citizen, and he wanted to do something more, and they ended up respecting him. So anything that we can do to foster the growth of the immigrants that are here, giving them a path, understanding how to do this, and making sure that they come in legally, just like our grandparents did. And as I said before, respect is the most important thing. We shouldn't be taking people off of roofs and things like that. It's just crazy. Everybody deserves the dignity. And I absolutely agree with any policy that will get these people to be citizens.
All right, Dan? Access to health care, especially mental health and substance abuse services, remains uneven across the state. What legislative actions would you prioritize in this area?
Well, healthcare is a very funny subject. I sit on the board of Independent Health, as I said earlier. The issue that we face today is that we have rising costs. So what we need to make sure that we're doing is we have a concerted effort for these programs that we want, and we have to have the money to do that. What people don't understand, and what's very difficult, is that we have an influx of the way that we receive our, like an MRI. One hospital charges one and another hospital charges another. Healthcare has got to have, everybody has to have skin in the game, and it cannot fall on the members or the constituents to pay for it. What we have to do is make sure that everybody's doing what they can possibly to make sure that they're lowering their costs and how they're providing the care. and make sure that we are passing that along to the people that are here. And mental health, obviously that goes along with the things that we're talking about. Nothing's more important than for us to have these programs in place.
The federal government has cut billions of dollars to healthcare, and into New York, they've cut deep cuts. We're going to start seeing more places close, clinics close, and the state government is going to have to pick up that slack. And it's going to be difficult, but that's what this job is. So A, I hope that we can fund it through the state. I think we are. We're putting a plan in place. But B, we've also got to elect some Democrats to Congress and take back the Congress so that we can restore the funding that has been gutted by the federal government.
You? Okay. Okay, Jeremy, question 20. We're almost running out of questions, so we're doing good here. But what does protecting democracy mean to you beyond protecting voting rights?
Well, as a commissioner of the Board of Elections, I swore an oath to do my job in a bipartisan fashion. So it was, I agree with nothing that Commissioner Moore really believes in politically, but we both were institutionalists at the board who believe in the Board of Elections and our democracy. I've seen Democrats and Republicans literally working in life and death situations during COVID where we didn't have vaccines, and we were sending our inspectors and we were sending our staff out without a vaccine to go administer the 2020 election. So it's personal for me. And I think we've got the best system in the country in New York, where we have a bipartisan Board of Elections at the state and local elections. I am concerned that there is some talk about consolidating everything into one state board, that the structure in the software is all one thing. I don't think that's a good idea. I think having 62 individual boards is important. There was some legislation to make boards non-partisan, which I think is ridiculous. There's some states in this country who elect one person to oversee the Board of Elections. There's no checks and balances. That one person gets to do whatever they want. So I'd like to keep our structure in place here. I wouldn't change it as far as having a bipartisan team, having oversight on both sides. And and I would really fight to continue having a paper trail with any voting that we have. We are able to go audit every single ballot. After the election, we have audits and we make sure that every vote is counted. We've had to fight against election deniers for the last 5-6 years, but we have the best system in the country right here in New York.
Can you repeat that? You asked about democracy?
Yeah, what does protecting democracy mean to you beyond voting rights?
It's the backbone of who we are. Democracy is where we come from. This is the greatest country in the world. Everything that we do, everything that we have, is because of democracy. Jeremy talks about voting rights. That's our right. And those are the things that we have to stand up for. Each and every day, we should be thankful that we're here. We shouldn't be looking at one another and trying to say that you have to be this or be that. These are the basic fundamentals that we have to be fighting for to make sure that everything that we're doing out there has meaning, because our play each and every day is about the next day and what we can do better for our neighbors and things of that nature. Think about it. What would we be doing if we were in Russia? Or what would we be doing in all across this country or across this world where they have nothing that we do? We just have to get out of our own way and stop thinking that we're on this side and that side. We need to be together. And what we need to do is we need to be working for consensus. Democracy is only as good as what we put into it. And I love the idea that we have peaceful protests. Look what Martin Luther King did. So democracy works when you allow it to work.
All right, here we are Dan, we're question 21. We've only got about 4 more questions, so we'll wrap this up. But question 21 is, what infrastructure investments are what infrastructure investments are most needed in this district, and how should the state prioritize them?
Well, Amherst, we just talked about the $22 million grant that the Village of Williamsville lost. So infrastructure is critically important. We need to make sure that what we're doing on a local level is we need to make sure that we're getting the things done that we say we're gonna get done. We need the state to help us, like CHIPS and all these things are critically important. So I think, again, if we could take the needs that we have as a community in 61, and we take those needs and we can get the state to make sure that we are funded for those needs, and we know that we're gonna get it, then we can take that, we can give it to the local officials and say, this is what you have, and they can prioritize what's most important to them in their area. The problem is that we're always fighting for $1 here and fighting for $1 there. I think that we should take our basic needs, I think we should understand it, I think we should fund them, and I think that we should make sure that we hold the local people accountable for it, and I think that we're gonna see a better and an even approach. CHIPS has been a successful program. Why? Because they know that it's coming in, and our infrastructure, we use it, and it works. So anything that people know, or these local officials know, then they can bank on it, and they can make decisions to get things done and fixed.
So I think there's a couple of really critical projects in the town of Amherst right now. The first is the Boulevard Mall. They're gonna need a lot of resources to make that project happen, and it's a critical project. It's right up, as everyone knows where the Boulevard Mall is, it's right in a prime area that we really need to get going. It's been an eyesore for far too long already, and I think we can make it happen as long as the state continues to support that with the resources. We've also got Willowdale Park, which I think Dan is still holding a lawsuit to try to stop the development of that park right now, but I think I'd be excited to work with Assemblymember McMahon to make sure the resources come in to finish that project and make sure we have a jewel in the town of Amherst with that park. You've got things happening in the town of Tonawanda along the waterfront that are generational changes that could happen that are exciting that we got to make sure happens. There could be some issues with the Dunlop plant and make sure there's funding there if they need it to refurb that place and get people back to work.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up Willowdale. I paid my own money to have that done because the local officials did illegal acts. I was the one who came out and said, keep it forever green. I wanted the people to decide what to do with it. I think it should stay a golf course, and I think what they should have done is went out and see if anybody wanted to buy it, so we would have had a taxable income in this town. That's what I wanted to do. And the lawsuit's going through because what they did was wrong. They did not do it properly. They did not give the people the right, enough time to have an open forum about this. They're arguing about it tomorrow. And I am excited to make sure that it's going to be done right because the officials are going to have to go back and make sure the public has the right to voice their opinion. As far as parks go, I'm all for it. I'm the one who said to keep it forever green. So this stigma that I'm trying to stop it, it's ridiculous.
Okay, on that same theme of infrastructure, would you support state funding for a metro rail expansion in Amherst?
Thank you. No, I don't. I don't support it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, I think we've got to see if that's what the community really wants and if that's something that we need. I would support it if that is something that the residents, come forward and they have to have a voice in this. But I also support funding NFTA and the metro fully as it is as well. I don't think we get enough resources upstate for our transit departments like the NFTA. We've got to have some parity there. I'm going to go to Albany and fight for more parity with the transit folks. I've been endorsed by the transit union who works every day on the buses and on the rails. So my answer is maybe, but that's at least an answer, right?
No, I don't agree with that. The 12,000 homes that I went to and the thousands of people I spoke to were in that area. They don't want it. And we don't need to connect two campuses together. Look at the buses, they're never full. We've spent $30 million studying this project. How about if we use the $30 million for more things that we have, like getting buses for the disabled that the NFDA needs to be doing? My point is, to put this is a 25-year too late expansion. And $2.5 billion is going to end up being $4 billion. And we cannot afford it, and we shouldn't do it.
Next question, Dan. How should New York balance environmental protection with economic development and energy affordability?
I was the director of environmental inspections for the city of Niagara Falls when Mayor Gagliardo was brought in. And environmental is a really important thing. We need to make sure that our lands are clean and we're doing things according to the environmental protections that we have in place. I cannot tell you that, like the Brownfields program and all those things are very important about how our environment is and how we can turn some things in our community to places where we can use them. Environmentally, we have to make sure that seekers are being done correctly, that we're taking all aspects of whatever we do environmentally, that all the community is involved in that. That's exactly what happened at Willowdale. Their seeker, this is part of the lawsuit, their seeker was not correct. They did not take into account putting another golf course in that place, what it was going to do to Autobahn. So we need to make sure that we're doing this accurately and the right way to make sure that that we have all questions answered. That's what the seeker form is for.
Part of the answer is you just can't compromise on some things. You know, our district includes Tonawanda Coke, it includes the Huntley plant. It was a disaster over there. And so I think handling our sewer systems is critical. We've got to invest in, it's not sexy, but we've got to invest in our sewer systems so that we don't have so much runoff. And, you know, I think we just can't compromise with the ecology of our region. We have the Great Lakes here. It's something we cannot play around with. We've put things in place at the county level. County Legislator Patrick Burke getting rid of plastics in our water was a great start. I just don't think we can compromise on a lot of the environmental impacts from business in our community, especially with the mistakes from the past that we've seen that have caused our such charm here.
All right, question 24. We got a new one, so we got another question. So, what is your stand on the governor's taking gas stoves out? This person has spoken to contractors and builders and say it's not feasible for New York.
Well, I don't think that's true. What I do hear is a lot of anxiety and concern about gas stoves and gas appliances from people. And I think that partly comes from the lying flyers that are sent out during campaigns. Just got one today. But we can't demonize every plan that is out there and then just say, they're coming for this or they're coming for that. There's a legitimate anxiety and legitimate concern from people in the business community that this is going to cause harm. That's why I'm glad we've slowed up the electrification situation here in the state. There's a lawsuit, and I think the governor is looking at different ways to make it less impactive on businesses and the grid. If we don't have enough electricity, it's just not going to work. So we have to slow this down a little bit to take a look at it, but climate realities are out there. And we are seeing it every summer, we're seeing it every day, that there are problems with fossil fuels, and we've got to do something about it.
Electrification doesn't make sense because you can't throw things up against the wall and say, this is what we're gonna do, and then expect it to catch up after. To Jeremy's point, the grid is not in the greatest shape, and who's bearing the cost is us. We're the ones who are paying for that. Our electric bills are going up for that. So what ends up happening is, as they use more energy, our electric bill goes up. So by adding electrification, all you're doing is going to create more dollars that we have to pay. It was smart that the lawsuit was done because contractors were rushing at the end of the year to get their plans passed because they wanted to be able to still have natural gas. Natural gas is still 68% more efficient. And I agree, we have to take this, but we have to do this in a systematic approach to make sure that whatever we're doing is we're not incurring costs on the back end. We are smarter than that. And that's why we're fighting, because we know that it's not the best course of action, because we have to rebuild our infrastructure that we have in place now.
Another audience question. What actions would you take to ensure your constituents are heard and have a voice instead of just the corporations and moneyed organizations?
We talked about this earlier. Nothing is more important for an elected official than to get out and talk to you. I said that earlier and I meant that. If we want this job, our job is to come out to you and talk to you and to be in the community so they know that you're there. I had coffee with the candidates for the entire supervisor race. I'm going to continue doing that as the senator. I'm going to do that every week, and I'm going to talk to people. We must engage the public and get their opinion. It's critical that people think that and know that they've got a voice to be able to say what's on their mind. Too often this is why people don't vote, because they don't think that their vote matters. It's not how it works. In order for us to make sure that people are heard, we have to have avenues for them to talk. That's why I want to do podcasts. I told you, 61. I want to have a YouTube channel of just about this 61 district, so everybody is aware and knows what we are doing at all times.
Well, I think communicating with the constituents is critical as well. I knocked on over 800 doors before the election and talked to residents across the district, and I enjoyed it. And I think people want that from their elected officials and from their candidates. Most people. Some people don't ever want you knocking on their door or calling them. But I think communication is critical. Having those conversations now, we're not talking to each other enough. We see it on both sides of the aisle that there's just not talking to one another on the aisle, but talking to their constituents, taking time at town halls, taking time at going out to district office hours, because everybody can't make it sometimes to where the Senate office is. So if I'm successful next week, I'd love to be able to have satellite offices throughout the district, because it's not easy for folks to get from, in the city of Buffalo to Amherst, or from Grand Island to the Tonawanda. Sometimes it's not easy. So I think communication is really important, and staying grounded, and probably not spending so much time in Albany. Getting back here and being in the district is also critical.
Excellent. Okay, this is going to be our last question. So, Jeremy, what are your personal goals as a state legislature?
Well, this has been a really difficult decision to decide to do this for me and my family, to take this on. I quit my job, and it took a pay cut. If I win, it's going to be a pretty substantial pay cut to do this. But I believe in public service. I believe in old-fashioned public service. I don't want to be somebody who's shooting TikTok videos or making YouTubes I want to make sure that when someone needs something from this district office, it gets done. That a staff person is following up on tickets for people who need help with something. I don't think that's getting done enough in our country. I think people think that being an elected official is being just a voice. You've got to be a voice and you've got to get things done. You got to deliver in Albany, and you got to make sure that Mrs. Jones' tree is cut out in front of her house, that she needs it cut down. Her sidewalk is taken care of. So-and-so's liquor license needs to be expedited because it's been at the, somewhere, was lost. Somebody's small business loan needs to be looked into. That is the stuff that I am excited to hit the ground running on, to lead this community, but also work with them to make things happen.
This is personal to me. I've worked my entire life to be here right now. The supervisor race was a prelude to being right here, and I know that. And the reason why I know that is because my entire existence and everything that I've ever done has been about serving people. Every day, no matter who and what you are. I've had to get up every single day and make sure that all the people that come into my place, my restaurants, or my other businesses that I've owned, that I try to serve them the best I could. This is personal because I know that everything that I have done in my past has led me here, and I know that the experience and the knowledge that I have, that I can make a genuine difference. I know that I will work harder than anyone because I believe that it has to start on this level, at the state level, that we bridge the divide that we've got. We have to make sure that we're talking to one another. We have to make sure that we're trying to get a consensus on the things that we do. It's critically important for my children and my grandchildren. I'm a father of 4 and I've got 6 grandkids. I don't want them to have to deal with the things that we're dealing with now. We're more civil than that, and we can be better. And this is a personal thing for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. So before we hear the closing statements, I just want to thank you all for attending today and demonstrating your civic concern. And I want to thank the candidates and the audience for the respect you showed throughout the evening. And don't forget, early voting has already started, and voting Tuesday, February 3rd, will be your last chance from 6 to 9. So we are going to do the closing statements in reverse order from the opening statements. So Jeremy, you go first, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you to the league and everyone who showed up tonight, and all the students that are here, and all the citizens for making it out on a snow globe Thursday night here in Buffalo. This is a critical race. It's an important one for our community to have somebody hit the ground running during the budget process that's coming up immediately. And we need someone who can go fight what is happening at the federal level. We need somebody that can deliver the resources that our community so desperately needs. And we need someone who understands the everyday struggles that are happening in this community, and that is me. I've born and raised in this community, and I'm raising my family here, and we're working hard every day to deliver for this community, and I want to do that in Albany. So I appreciate you. I hope you get out and vote. These elections are oftentimes decided by a small number of people, and early voting runs through Sunday, and then Tuesday, obviously 6 to 9 p.m. is election day. But I'd be honored to have your support, and I'd be honored to go to Albany to fight for you. Thank you.
Jeremy, I want to thank you for tonight's thoughtful and spirited discussion. I also want to thank our MC, the League of Women Voters, and UB for hosting this forum, and everyone who took the time to be here and engage in the process. Your participation matters. Those who know me know this. Leadership starts with listening. During my previous race for supervisor, I held weekly face-to-face open discussions with anyone who walked through the door. I did that because I'm not afraid of tough conversations, different opinions, or accountability. And that's the same approach I will take to Albany. Showing up, speaking honestly, and making sure the voices of this district are heard. I am ready to go to Albany and clearly say who I am, who I represent, and what Western New York needs. I am motivated, focused, and prepared to fight for our district. I'm a problem solver and a task completer. In the businesses I've run and the government positions I've held, I've faced real challenges every day. Balancing budgets, managing expenses, planning projects, and building teams that people want to be part of. That's where I do my best work. I am a consensus builder. I believe progress comes from working with people of different viewpoints, regardless of party label. I'm open, honest, and committed to results, not headlines. This special election matters. By electing me on February 3rd, you will help restore balance and ensure Western New York has a strong, practical voice at the table. Thank you for your time, your trust, and your consideration. Thank you.
All right, just as we wrap up here, I want to thank you all for attending and let you know this is what democracy looks like. We're all out here, we're hearing from two very good candidates, and we wish them both good luck. And we'll see what happens on Tuesday night.